This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
You all ready for this?
This is a sham.
No.
Nope.
Y'all, just stop.
Get real.
Welcome to DBL. Millions have tuned in each week, wooed by the wholesome and authentic love story being sold on The Golden Bachelor. We've all watched, am I right?
Yes.
Including your mother, am I right?
Yes.
Dr. Cobb.
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Cobb loves it.
Were we duped? Dun, dun, dun.
Probably. Right?
That's terrible. A new expose in The Hollywood Reporter spoke to a, quote, secret girlfriend of Gary's that he supposedly dated after... Ex-girlfriend, excuse me, of his wife of 43 years after his wife of 43 years died. This ex claimed that they dated for nearly 3 years and even moved in together before he allegedly dumped her for gaining 10 pounds.
That picture is terrifying.
You're right. But this is not what Gary portrayed. No. Here's what he told Entertainment Tonight. Take a look at this.
Have the ladies been sliding into the DMs, Gary?
I don't know what that is. I know absolutely nothing about social media. I'm a neophyte to this. I mean, I haven't dated in 45 years.
Oh, all of this has come to light just before tonight's big finale, where he will reveal the woman he wants to start his whole new life with. What do we think of all this? Do you feel duped? Or is this just a jilted ex talking to the press?
Well, I mean...
Who's going to stand up for Gary?
I made the joke. Well,
Who's going to tear him down?
I won't go after Gary yet. I will. Don't worry. But I will say this, that Gary's situation in terms of, like, his credentials that they felt they had to bump up. They couldn't just say, hey, he was a maintenance man, hey, at a mental health facility,
right,
that he fixed up hot tubs, because Americans wouldn't take that. So is that more on us, that we as a society need this incredible, inflated person, rather than here's a guy that lived life? Yeah, he owned a restaurant, and then he did what he had to do. I think they felt like they needed to heighten who he was so he would be accepted by the American public. With that said, we caught him in a lie right there, because he said, you know, he hadn't dated in 45 years. Where's his secret girlfriend? Was that 46 years ago?
Right. Apparently it was like 6 months after, or very soon after, his wife passed away. He was described on the series as a retired restaurateur who retired at 55. Apparently to LinkedIn, he last owned a restaurant in 1985. Erica, who looks beautiful today.
Early retirement.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he was someone who was an entrepreneur, and at a young age to sell your restaurant, I mean, that's amazing in my book. I don't know what the details of the logistics were, but that sounds like...
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, it sounds like an accomplishment.
Right.
I think when you're talking about The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, any show where a person is the prize, you're kind of setting people's expectations very high for a fall from grace from some sort. So I'm not exactly surprised that these stories are coming out. I didn't think Gary was a perfect person. I don't think being a perfect person is necessarily the point. In order for us to get our entertainment, we need the synopsis. I don't need to know what Gary's bank account looks like. I don't need to know any of those things. And if the women who are dating him are interested in that, and that's supposed to be a part of the behind the scenes stuff that they're talking about, I would hope they're interested in that, then that's on them. Like, I don't care about this.
But we were sold.
Isn't that part of The Bachelor, though, is to, like, he's a Navy guy who's a lawyer. He's got an 8-pack.
Right,
He's going
and
to
he
carry you out of
probably
the...
has done some nefarious things in his 71 years.
Yes, but on paper, they're impressive people.
Right. Well, I guess. I mean,
Jeff, what do you think? Go ahead.
Pull that picture of Gary back up. Could we buy the dog by the lake that Al's terrified of?
It's scary. It looks like the last picture you'll ever see.
The J. Crew one. No, the one with the dog.
I know, they'll work through it, because I'm just calling it totally random.
Okay.
But as I get to that, that is the picture that they're selling to the American public.
Yes.
The American public want a fairy tale, okay?
Yes.
What we want now on social media is to shred people and tear them apart.
Yes.
In 71 years, that's the picture I'm talking about. Nobody is that guy,
Great job,
okay?
both.
Nobody is that guy. But we, as viewership, want people to think this man is the only guy that exists. I can't believe we found him. Now we're going to show him to America. The reality is there is no such thing as the perfect person.
Right.
71 years on this planet, you're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to cast stones, right? Let's chop this man down. He lied. He wasn't a restaurant guy. When I first got on reality television, they're like, this guy was a former college football player. I was a college football player. Division III. There's a difference between Division III and Division I, like Northwestern, where her brother played. I don't want to take credit away from those guys who sacrificed their lives at Division I level that have a chance at the pros. Yeah, I played college football, but how do you want to skew it? Hollywood's always going to skew it up to make you look better. And now we're bashing Hollywood for doing what we love, is to put our minds aside and want that perfect dream.
I hear
Might as well
that.
just
My
put out there he
question
voted for Trump and really get after it.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right. First of all, I will say that J. Crew picture was absolutely terrifying. I completely agree with you. But second, would we not rather just have them told us the truth if we are? I mean,
they did tell the truth.
No,
We want
and
the
they said
fantasy.
he worked at hot tubs. He did. Why make it seem like he's never dated in his life? He's a super
it's one
rich
woman
guy.
that's coming out. Great timing, by the way.
I agree with you.
On the finale of The
I agree
Bachelor,
with you.
saying they broke up because he wanted her to lose 10 pounds.
I don't want to look. You shouldn't look
right
like
there,
that.
I don't believe it. Right there, come on. You think that? All right, whatever you want to believe.
Right. I'm just playing the other side. Was it not false advertising?
Yeah, but everything is
not.
false. We did the story about a month ago about people suing Wendy's because the burger didn't look like it did in the commercial. Sell us the fantasy.
Well,
I want to pretend the burger's going to look like that. I want to pretend like this is a perfect person, and I'm going to find my knight in shining armor. If it was just, hey, here's a guy, I don't know if the ratings would be as good.
I think you have to remember that one of the last women standing was a video vixen who danced with Prince and twerked as her skill set. I don't think that these people are necessarily looking for the perfect person. I think they're looking for the perfect person for them, and Gary might actually be the perfect person for one of them.
I hope so. Gary, we're still rooting for you, buddy.
That's
what the consent.
No, I'm giving the other side.
No, I'm just saying Gary's a regular guy, but they got to sell the fantasy.
I just hate this idea of where we're at in society.
Trying to tear people down.
Hey, as soon as someone gets elevated a little bit and takes a step up, let's burn the house down.
I know. I hear you.
That's the fun part.
Gary, we're still with you. Coming up on DBL, comedian Bill Engvall is taking a look back at his decades-long career, and the world reacts to Henry Kissinger's death, remembering the controversial mark he left on politics, plus his surprising dating life with high-profile women in Hollywood. He was quite the Lothario.
Worked his way up and eventually bought the franchise.
So that's good.
And then sold it.
Okay, so that's good.
Yes, but I mean,
But I'm just saying,
it
so
was
you know the
1985.
facts.
in a
How do you
small town.
feel that
Not
you-
taking away from it, but it wasn't. When you think, when you say restaurateur,
Right.
you don't think you sold
The burger joint,
You
1985.
think, you know.
You think
He's a restaurateur or he owns a Subway.
Right. You don't.
And even a Subway,
ownership.
Yeah, and it's a franchise.
Subway, aren't they the most popular?
I don't, but he didn't own a Subway.
He did not.
I think when I looked at Gary and I thought, I know who this man is. Was I thinking like, oh my gosh, he's the perfect person. He's never done anything wrong. No, I don't think that's who Gary is. Gary's a dude from Indiana who has been pretty close to home his whole life. He married his high school sweetheart. She passes away, unfortunately. He moved on with his life. He had a relationship. It clearly didn't work out. Now there's feelings involved, and I don't blame the woman for saying something, because if you say, or if you don't correct, and this could be editing too, it is reality television, but if you don't correct the idea that there hasn't been anyone since the love of your life, then you're essentially erasing someone from the history of your life, which people have a right to do, but that doesn't mean that that person can't have feelings about the erasure of their experience with you. So I'm not mad at this person for saying something, but I think to make it into this whole expose, like, am I shocked and ruined by this? No, because we have one more night. We're going to find out who gets the rose, and then I'm not going to think of Gary another day in my life. We're going to move on to the next person, and we're going to live the fantasy again. That's what reality TV is.
Welcome back to DBL. So former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has died at 100 years old. His consulting firm confirmed his death yesterday, but did not provide a cause. He was President Nixon's national security advisor and later Secretary of State. Now, he helped negotiate the peace deal to end the Vietnam War. And under President Ford, he opened China up to the U.S., brokered arms control talks with the Soviet Union, and negotiated ties between Israel and Egypt. But his 1973 Nobel Peace Prize was met with protest over his role in orchestrating the secret carpet bombing of Cambodia, which killed tens of thousands of people. Still, Kissinger was a darling of Hollywood, who was often photographed with stars like Elizabeth Taylor, Raquel Welch, and even Princess Diana. He even reportedly dated Bond girl Jill St. John and was linked to Shirley MacLaine, Diane Sawyer, and Zsa Zsa Gabor. Even after leaving politics, he regularly consulted with presidents, including Bush, Obama, and Trump on foreign policy matters. Al, a very complicated figure, a very binary figure. What is your take on?
I'd say so. You know, when we started talking about Cambodia in the meeting room, I realized that I listened to a bunch of podcasts about the Khmer Rouge, and I was wondering if they linked up. And basically, what happened is the American-backed regime that Kissinger set up in Cambodia fell, and the Khmer Rouge came in and overworked, starved, and slaughtered Cambodians to the point where it got rid of 20% of their population. So saying 10,000 people, tens of thousands is like, we should not say that on television again. That's not on you or the producers. Like, that's not true. Like, when we're talking about what happened, when we talk about the killing fields, like a movie that I had to psych myself up to get through, to show his girlfriends that's a rough one for me.
Dude, I was there. And it's even rougher. And
so why am I talking? Talk to us, Chef.
No. I'm saying it still affects that. The people in Cambodia are great. I don't want to make this all about Cambodia, but the people are great. The devastation that it caused with Khmer Rouge. People don't even know that story about what happened over there, but it's horrific, like Al said. But back to Kissinger, I think there's going to be a movie made about him, right? Because I don't think a lot of people know exactly who he is. He played this high-profile, you know, in the government, in Hollywood, and I feel like a movie's going to be coming out documenting
in that period of time, too.
Yeah, and let me just say, he is one of the most important world figures we've ever seen in terms of foreign policy. He was known as a realist, a pragmatist. He did open up China. He did have peace talks, and including Israel and Egypt, which no one had done before. So he has done good. He's also done what I consider absolute evil, which is what Al is talking about, especially when he allowed the carpet bombing of a neutral country, which was Cambodia during the Vietnam War. We're allowed to have both. Erica has taught me that. You're allowed to have duality of thought and understand that this controversial figure also shaped a lot of world policy of what we have now, good or bad. He was an important world figure to this country and the world, and his death will be an important part.
I'll say this, speaking to a larger point, I just hope that my kids, our kids, the next couple of generations coming up, get a chance to really understand world history and not just from this country's point of view. Yeah. I think that this country would be surprised how open Americans are to realizing we're not infallible, and people make bad decisions, and wars are disgusting and gross. Like, we can't just focus on World War II, guys. Like Korea, we need to talk about what happened there. We need to talk about how we went into Vietnam so we don't do these things again. Afghanistan was 2 minutes ago.
Afghanistan, Iraq. Go ahead, Eric.
I think it's progress that we are having this conversation the way that we are, because, I mean, not even 5 years ago, you get someone who was a Secretary of State and a world leader and, you know, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and they pass away, and it's like this huge, like, beautiful thing about their life. Yeah, it's very floral. And I think that there's a lot of duality here, and I appreciate being able to have the conversation the way that we had it, because, as you mentioned, history is told by the side of the victors, and that's not always the best way to tell it.
That's not how we do it here either. We'll be right back.
I would say, "We miss you, baby. When you coming back?" And she would type IDKMU and the number 2. And I'm like, I the moon. Mu to me. And I go, yeah, what the hell is she saying? She's saying, I don't know, but I miss you too. And that was so sweet. And I wish I'd have known that before I wrote her out of the will.
Welcome back. That was a clip from comedian Bill Engvall's last stand-up special. Earlier, we spoke to him about his career and if he believes Bigfoot is real. Check it out. Please welcome back to DBL, Bill Engvall.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see ya.
Great to see you, Bill. Happy holidays from your old pal, Pastor Paul from Wish for Christmas.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So, Bill, let's get to it. In your last stand-up special, you talk about wanting a Bigfoot costume. So, do you believe Bigfoot is real?
Well, I haven't been proven that he doesn't. So, you know, for me, I think there's a fun of it. Yes, would I love to see a Bigfoot? Yeah, like that'd be all. I don't want to see it up close, but, you know, and the sad thing, though, is if there is a Bigfoot out there, I hope that somebody who knows what they're doing catches him. And someone's just going to shoot him.
So, Bill, real quickly, did you see this video? Because we film out here in Colorado. What do you think? Is this a real Bigfoot?
I'm going to go no on that. That could very easily have been me. I mean, who knows what's out there? I don't know. You know, it's like, there's a part of me that, you know, is there Loch Ness monster? Is there, we as humans, we're fascinated by monsters. But I'll be honest with you, I'm addicted to those shows. I watch them all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh because they'll just be walking through the woods and then out of nowhere, one of them will go, "Did you hear that?" Like,
Bill, your bit about texting really resonated with me because I'll text my daughter and, you know, it'll just say delivered silently. And I'm like, I paid the bill. No, mine goes straight through. So I really, us older dudes texting young people, I get it, bro.
Oh, yeah. That's with our kids to say. I remember if I need to get hold of my kids, it could be 2, 3, 4 days before I hear from them. But if they need something,
right,
and I don't answer them right away, they're like, "Well, where were you?" I'm trying to get hold. I go, "Well, welcome to the club."
Well, you know, from one stand-up to an accomplished 42-year vet like yourself, looking back over your entire career, what tour stands out to you as the most memorable? I'm curious.
You know, I think when I was on the Blue Collar tour, that thing just got so big. I mean, there was blue collar dolls, for God's sakes. I mean, it was. I think we all knew it would be successful, but I don't think we had any idea. I mean, we were selling out arenas.
Yes.
It was. You know, I remember the first time we did a show. And we were in an arena. Before they let the crowd in, I walked to the center stage and just looked around and thought, my God, I started out in a smoky little comedy club, and here I am in the middle of this arena, and people have bought tickets to see us. That just was beyond. It wasn't even in your realm of thought.
Bill, before we go, I got to know what was the first club you did?
First club I ever did was the Comedy Corner in Dallas, Texas. It then became a strip joint, and now I think it's a Costco.
There we go. We call that the natural evolution of things.
Right. Yeah. We heard Jeff Foxworthy pulled a prank on you on a plane. We'd love to hear this story.
So we were, I forget, we were somewhere in the Midwest, and I had a private plane because I had been doing some other gigs, and we landed, and the pilot said, "We can't open the doors yet." And I said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "Apparently the DEA has to come on, and there's been rumors of drugs on the plane." Ooh. And I'm losing my mind. I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then I see Foxworthy outside, and the pilots and everybody was in on it. So, yeah, but there was a moment. I was really getting angry because I had to get off the plane, and then I saw his grin out there, and I went, "Okay." All right.
Good old
Yep. Bill, thank you so much for joining us on DBL today. To our viewers, here's your sign. It's finally time. My last show is out December 5th on several platforms, including Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, and YouTube. Thank you again, Bill.
So
great
Congrats
to see
on 42
you.
years, brother.
Congrats is right.
Welcome back. We have such great products from our friends at Morning Save. Remember, the holidays are coming up. Check them out.
All right, Steph, what do you have for us today?
Hey Jeff, hey DBL Nation, we are super excited to show you all of our deals today. They're super snazzy. Come shop with me. Look at this. I love it. Check out the Adagio California Air Wand Styler set. This deal includes one wand with 5 different attachments. Now normally this is $299, but we've got it for $39.99. That is saving 87%. Now check out this for you chefs at home. This is the Eat Neat 12-piece knife and cutting board set. So this doorbuster deal includes an 8-inch chef's knife, an 8-inch bread knife, an 8-inch slicing knife, a 4-inch paring knife, a 5-inch utility knife, 1 knife sharpener, and 1 cutting board. But this block that they're on right here does not come with the set. This doorbuster deal is always super popular, so we have a limit on this of 3 per customer. So normally this is $41, but we have got it for just $10. That's saving 76%. And check out this. This is super handy too. We've got the Cobalt X adjustable 2-in-1 smartphone or tablet stand. So this deal includes 1 stand that you can see here. It is adjustable. So normally it's $30, but we've got them for just $5. So that's saving 83%. And then also, last today, we've got the Homes Air One True HEPA Air Purifier Tower. So this deal includes 1 air purifier and it comes with 3 replacement filters. Normally it's $160. We have got it for $39.99. That's saving 75%.
Great job, Steph. Head on over to morningsave.com to snag these amazing deals at the lowest prices, or you can even scan the QR code on the screen to take you directly to these products on Morning Save's website. Again, Steph, fantastic job.
All right, guys, we have a comment from Megan who said, well, of course he's not perfect. Maybe you can't find someone perfect from Indiana.
Did you read that?
No, someone, Jody told me, and she is from Indiana.
Oh.
So maybe there's competition against the sports teams.
Oh. Okay.
You're talking about The Bachelor.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot happens in like 10 seconds. I'm so sorry.
Wait, explain that again.
I can't. Goodbye.